the obvious makers and doers and shakers, but we thought that we really needed to go further. In saying that, I think we were both surprised that the work is. We thought there would be more radical work out there, more transgressive work, because we were looking for anything and everything down our path of the kind of work, and maybe that is, we've reached equality in Canada. We've mainstreamed now. It's okay to hold hands and kiss and get married, and we all pay taxes, and everyone can live safely in the Asian don't have to be a recognized ghetto. The whole formulated art, commercialized art world around installations and queer identity politics has been subversive and even commodified. Maybe those are some of those questions too. Everyone is making safer.
Down on the internet last year, and Terrace is actually straight and was the last person who ever set out to make a queer transgressive work, and would never expect he was, headlining a queer art show before this all started. And what he was doing was he was in the middle of it. He's a Canadian Ukrainian artist, and he was doing a piece in the National Gallery of the Ukraine, and it was a piece based on Sleeping Beauty. And how it worked was he had 5 Sleeping Beauties who slept in the gallery. People could go in and get a herpes test, and they had to sign a waiver saying that if the Sleeping Beauty woke up when she was kissed, they had to marry her. Okay, so this was the whole thing around this. And it was a veiled reference to the former Prime Minister of Ukraine, I think she was, who had been put in jail because there's a big fight in the Ukraine between pro-Western and pro-Russian, and the Russians had gotten in and jailed this woman, and there was always this idea that the Sleeping Beauty was referencing her. But very early on it got picked up by the New York Times, and then by a whole bunch of other places, and it got misrepresented in a British newspaper where they said that only men could sign up to kiss the Sleeping Beauty, which was never the case. And so then he got attacked by all these feminists and queer activists of being heteronormative and creating this performance that was very heteronormative, although that was never the intention. And then the show went on for about 4 months, and in the second month he got ripped off by Lady Gaga. But then things started heating up, because in the Ukraine, as is right now happening in the Soviet Union at that time, they were putting in all these anti-homosexuality laws, all these laws around, around any kind of reference to homosexuality, any kind of positive references. And then the Sleeping Beauty woke up, and she'd been kissed by a woman and not a man. And all of a sudden, Terrace's work went from being heteronormative to being attacked as gay propaganda by the church and the state in the Ukraine. And Terrace, in this weird thing, being a Canadian, whereas, queer activists have a hard time in the Ukraine, he was able to kind of perform a function there that the people there couldn't perform. And the 2 women, I'm not sure whether they were even lesbians or not, were playing along about how, in the Ukraine women can't get married, so even though they've signed this thing, it doesn't really matter. And so it became this really interesting time, and he was doing all these. And I was watching it on Facebook, because I know him, I mean, we're not close friends or anything, but I've met him and we are Facebook friends. And he was doing things like, I guess, when the president and the Russian presidents meet and the Ukrainian presidents, they always kiss on the mouth. I guess that's an Eastern European tradition. So he was shoving things on his Facebook page of presidents kissing, going back to Stalin, of all these things, asking about what's gay propaganda and what isn't, and doing all these kinds of quite provocative things that would have got him jailed if he was actually a Ukrainian citizen. So that's where this started. And so I phoned Terrace, or Facebook Terrace, and said, was he interested in being, I knew he was straight, but was he interested in being in a queer arts festival? And he said he thought it was a perfect place for the work to end up. And so he actually produced these 2 videos just for the festival, and this was the work around that. So, and this thing is showing the actual performance of the women, people coming in, and this is the media coverage, which was considerable around the thing. So this was at first.
And a lot of the works in this exhibition are selfies. There are artists turning the cameras on themselves and using their own bodies for the material, because that's what we seem to know best. But in this exhibition here, although there's 14 artists in the exhibition, I never considered it to be 14 artists, because many of the artists in this exhibition turn their cameras or use others for their subjects, including the public. So this work, as the entrance piece, is by Val Ansel, and we really included it because it's collaborative portraits with 10 outstanding artists in Vancouver. And the collaborative thing here is they each get to pick out a text that becomes a text, a photo, essay, and then that is kind of body painted onto them, and then a photo taken. So these is kind of the entrance piece. Is we have 10 artists from different disciplines photographed in collaboration with Bell, and they kind of represent the voices, the concerns, the attitudes of artists in the city and artists in this exhibition. And that kind of speaks kind of with that piece by Mr. S.D. Holman right here.
Yeah, we like the echo.
The echoes, which are these butch portraits. But really what spoke to us about this works and what we selected is that was kind of wonderfully transgressive, as these were done as public art projects. These were placed around bus shelters in the city.
I was one of the people she shot, and what she asked us is, what does your work do for you? What does it invoke for you? So it wasn't necessarily what you're trying to say, but what does it do for you as an artist? So.
You want to do Nofus?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
This is a piece called Masturbating to the Fatherland, in the Fatherland by Nafus Ramirez Figueroa. Nafus is an artist from Vancouver. And this was a piece I saw a couple of years ago in Beirut when I was at a conference there. And there was Akram Zaharie, who's a gay artist in Beirut, had done a queer program in Beirut. But it was illegal to show any of that program in any cinema in Beirut because homosexuality is illegal and because of the laws. So to actually have this program, it was the program of the sexual explicit work that started off with this piece had to actually be done in an architect's. It was done in an architect's office, a very famous architect named Bernard Corey, because they knew that the state wouldn't come down on him for showing this work, where any cinema that had shown it would have gotten closed down. So, and it was funny to see this piece because I hadn't seen it, but later when I talked to Nafus about it, it's actually his father singing the love song and playing the music, and then he's masturbating using a carrot. And I think it kind of talks, I've known Nafus for at least 20 years, since he was a teenager, and he's always been he grew up in Vancouver, but his parents were both Guatemalan rebels during the war there. And so they never left Guatemala, and he was sent up here to live with his grandmother. So he grew up with his grandmother. And so he knows Guatemala from going down there and doing this whole thing, but his relationship with his parents and with the homeland is very kind of tenuous at best. And I think this piece really kind of that's what this piece is really about, and you really feel it in the piece.
And we've kind of paired that with the other Lavender video with Emilio Rojas, who's also
he's from Mexico.
He's from Mexico, and recently came here to go to Emily Carr, and was also doing more performance artwork. And the fact that they both come from Central America is very interesting, and that each of their works are I mean, here we have carrots being shoved up the ass, and there we have corks being spewed out from the ass, and they're both kind of dealing with
colonialism.
Yeah, the colonized state of mind and identity politics, and of course queer politics. So the fact that both these works kind of have appeared and we paired them is kind of remarkable. In fact, we've paired a lot of works in here. There's something going on. They're not disconnected works. There is, and I think in particularly coming from other communities, and this they say non-middle class white, gay or lesbians. There's a lot going on in other parts of the world that have not yet have our privilege vantage viewpoint. There's as I was talking to John the other day, I think that's what's they're also kind of the most radical people on the kind of performance art circuit in the States too. Because I think they're speaking from and to a community that is, there's a lot more friction going on there. There's a lot personal, familial, and political, and geographic, and all those things.
And we try to place the works in different triumvirates and stuff like that. Just to make things up. This is this is Kathy's work, and here's Kathy. Do you want to do it? And she showed us these pieces that she has made with gel medium in her own blood and a mirror. And we thought they spoke to identity on issues of DNA, hereditary, and diseases, a whole bunch of things. And we thought they worked well, and these three pieces worked really well together because of those overlays that are in all of them.
Like I say that, we made it. She submitted an idea, and we made studio visits. I never met her before. We went to her live-work studio, and really, she had a little sample from her first outing about this big. And I think by the end of our studio visit, and within days, it had gone to this mirror and to a remake. So I mean, often, the openness of being able to have someone submit an idea, having a studio visit and talk about stuff, allows something to kind of be created and finished for this space and for this work. So it's in fact, we paired it with Terry Haynes' work, Bloodstorm, who is no longer with us. He's HIV positive. His first work, 1995, was about being HIV positive. His last work, which got completed by his friends several weeks after he passed on in April, speaks about HIV and his battle with it. And in this work, he talks about his blood. And he's also First Nations. So we read this work called Bloodstorm. So these works totally speak about those things. Really, and why do you use blood?
For a number of different reasons about identity, but also in the context of this exhibition, it's for me the transgression of boundaries of what the heterosexual society is accepting from us. I think the mindset is still very much in the Enlightenment period where essentialism and the body fluids are meant to be contained, and especially body fluids of marginalized groups, like of people of color, of women, of queers. Like, you have got to make sure that those fluids have to be under control, otherwise all of us are at risk for, the world's gonna explode. So by putting queer body fluids out there in the world, I'm transgressing the rule. There's a rule, to be controlled, and I'm saying, no, I'm not gonna control it. So that's one reason I totally work with it.
Well, I'm loving this piece. It's a very quiet piece in its presentation, but it's incredibly elegant in the space, which is that's very transgressive and very transformative to literally take stuff and make a beautiful work.
I always think in this work there's a lot of resistance, and sometimes the resistance seems obvious, and sometimes the resistance is not so obvious. But there is a kind of fight not to sit pretty on the wall and just be there to kind of play with that.
So then we have Johnny's over here. This is Johnny, and this is his baby blanket, a work called Deconstruction. And I'm very nervous about this work. He arrived here the other day with it in a squished up in a bag, And I originally contacted him because I knew that he was kind of an activist, and I knew that he had an interest in politics about it.